The TRE Book Show is sponsored by Audible. Click on the Audible banner on the talkradioeurope.com homepage to download your free audiobook today. Terms and conditions apply.
The Book Programme. Presented by Hannah Murray.
Joining us on the line now from the UK is Peter Sissons, who qualified as an architect and became a professional artist, painting pictures for celebrities and businesses. When he's not writing in the man shed that he designed and built himself, you can find him with his laptop in Oxford's coffee shops. He's with us on the book show to talk about his debut novel, The Rosario. It's based in London and then heads to Spain. It's based on the story of the ship from the Spanish Armada and inspired by a set of doors from Devon. Welcome to the book show, Peter.
Hello.
Thanks very much for joining us. I just love the idea that the book is based on a set of doors from Devon.
Yes, I saw them several years ago, and they appeared because I'm interested in history as well, 16th century history. I thought they weren't English, and they could be possibly 16th century Flemish finely carved doors, and they were in an old property in Devon. And I've always remembered them, and I use those doors in the story. I imagine them being the doors that Drake stole from the Rosario that was part of the Armada.
Yeah.
And so the Rosario storyline began literally hanging on those two doors.
Brilliant. So with your background in architecture and art and things like that, how did the idea of writing a book come about?
It came about because I was talking with somebody about authors and books, novels in particular, and this person, after I suggested, well, I could write a novel, suggested I couldn't. And that was like a red ragdoll ball to me, and I could see there was a challenge there. So a couple of years ago, I started writing the novel. But I hadn't done any creative writing before that, and I was just astonished at how I absolutely fell in love with it. And I just sat down with my laptop, and chapter after chapter came out of my head. And by the end of it, I had a lot of chapters, and I hadn't actually looked at how many words I'd written. And by that time, I thought I'd better get a professional editor to make sure that my terrible English grammar and spelling was up to scratch, which it never is. And she came back and said, yes, this is good, but 800,000 words isn't a novel. And she said, well, you've got about 5 or 6 novels here. So I had to go through this very, very, very difficult task of editing all these words back down to a novel that even now has become quite a chunky novel.
And was that difficult, getting rid of so much of it?
Well, I think every author thinks that every word in their manuscript is precious. And it was a terrible task to actually start cutting out literally chapters, characters. So it was a huge task. But now editing doesn't affect me at all. I'm quite happy to sit down and change things.
Yeah, and you're happy with the final draft?
Yes, because it was so edited down. It was really taken down to the point where I knew every word. So I was very happy with the resulting 185,000 words, which ended up, like I said, into this quite chunky novel.
Yeah. So what can you tell us about the characters in the book?
The characters, they are obviously from my imagination, but what surprised me when I started writing was the fact that I was able to see the scenes, I was able to see the characters, the way they dressed, the way their character came over, in the way they spoke, the type of speech they were using, and how they interacted with each other. And
yeah, and so your main character is a villain in a way.
He is a horrible villain, and he lives on an isolated luxury villa estate high up in the beautiful and rugged Spanish Catalonian mountains, which I've seen in my holidays. And he's very posh-sounding, upper-class boss. And he's fabulously rich because of his dealings with illegal arms, which obviously nobody knows about. But he is rude, obnoxious, and pretty strange as well. I mean, he's got obsessions. He's got a mania about the collecting things from the Spanish Armada and the 16th century. And his total domination of his estate's hard to handle. But the two people he pays to come and do things for him, that's the architect and that's Max, and Katie, who's an expert in 16th century Spanish and English history and languages, are flown up, and they're actually given shed loads of money, even though this guy is a illegal arms dealer, to do one thing is for Max to build a new exhibition building for his artifacts that he's collected over the years, and also Katie, who is going to decipher certain documents that are found in a certain piece of furniture that he managed to get hold of.
And what are Katie and Max like? Are we rooting for them?
Oh, absolutely. They're the good guys, and they are under extreme stress because eventually they find out when they're on site in the mountains where they can't really get out of the place, that they find out that Sinclair is downright dangerous, and he actually finds out that they know, and so they're trapped up there, and it all revolves around what they do next to get out of that crisis.
And the book is set between the present day and going right back to the adventures of Sir Francis Drake.
That's right, because most of it's in present day time, but it floats back to the time of the 16th century. The actual title of the book, The Rosario, that comes from that large galleon that was part of the unsuccessful Spanish Armada invasion in 1588. The galleon was actually disabled by two other Armada ships colliding with it, and that was captured by Sir Francis Drake, who was second in command of the English fleet. And he didn't know at the time it was just full of gold and silver and valuables to pay for an army in what is Calais now. So they were actually going to sail, the Armada was going to sail to Flanders.
I bet it was fun doing all the research for this.
It was, which I loved. I absolutely loved it, especially making up the 16th century documents. They turned out extremely well. From the Rosario, he took several things. He took the Admiral's bed, that's Don Pedro de Valle. He was a Spanish admiral of the Rosario, and he actually took it apart and put it into his Buckland Abbey house in Devon. And you can actually see that bed because it's National Trust property. And in my book, I actually made up the fact that he also took several other things. A fine travelling desk called a Vareno, which is ultra important to the story in my book. And in the novel, I describe how Drake puzzled his crew by deciding to remove two finely carved timber doors from Valdez's cabin. And he hung in his home at Buckland Abbey to remind him each day of the capture of his great prize, the Rosario. So those are the doors that I used from that Devon property I saw a couple of years ago.
Yeah. And has it made you want to write more now that the book is out?
Yes. If you read the book, at the end I give a slight suggestion that it's going to carry on. The last paragraph or so. And I'm actually getting very frustrated because the whole process, because I self-published the book, the whole process of self-publishing and then marketing and publicizing the book has taken over. And that's why I'm doing this now.
So there's a bit of delay on book 2, is there?
Oh, yes, I've got it sort of mapped out. So I can't really sit down and do it like I used to when there were no other pressures.
Yeah.
Well,
I guess you need to factor it in as part of writing the book, because if nobody knows about it, then nobody's going to buy it.
Well, this is it. I mean, it's so different. I think it's so different. I have complete and utter respect for publishers now. I went down the same route as every other author of trying to get publishers and agents. I must have written to about 200 plus.
Oh, you're
publishers.
kidding, really? Wow.
And they all came back with very polite emails and letters. And I got to the point where my editor, who's extremely good, I mean, she is ultra good, suggested I should just self-publish it. But I didn't realize the long journey I was going to have when I self-published. It's not an easy journey.
No. Well, congratulations.
Well, thank you. I mean, I'm very proud of what I've produced because I've had some amazing reviews in .com reviews. I got a great one in Amazon. My biggest problem is because you self-publish, and I did it through a company in America because I wanted to concentrate on the e-book market. Because it's self-published, and I think this must affect all people who self-publish, when you're not a publisher, you're not printing 50,000 books to bring the price down to a couple of pounds per paperback. And when you self-publish, you have to do it on demand. So the price of each paperback jumps up to really the price of the paperback that would be in the shops.
Yeah.
So if you look on Amazon, the prices are a bit silly, but I always try, I don't know if I can say this, but I always try and ask people to go to the lulu.com site and their shop where the prices are sensible because they don't add anything on because I publish through them.
Okay, fantastic. So lulu.com is the place to go.
Yeah, lulu.com/shop, and then you put in my title or name, and then the three come up, the e-book, the paperback, and the hardbook.
Brilliant. Well, Peter Sissons, we wish you all the luck with the book. And
Thank you very much.
It's called The Rosario, if people want to get a copy, and we can put it on our website as well so people can buy it through there.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed talking.
The Book Programme. Presented by Hannah Murray.